Hello, 2023. Oh my gosh. We are kicking off my birthday month, February, with the launch of the all new Behind the Boss Lady podcast. And I am really excited to share with you our guest that we have on today. She is a business and marketing coach. She's a soul strategist and a wealth energetics expert. And this conversation went so deep, it's going to blow your mind. The work that she does and the purpose that she uncovered, and just how she allowed herself to fully step into who she's meant to be for this world is so dang inspiring. She is one of a kind. And I will tell you that her energy, her belief, her just knowing of herself and her gifts, it just radiates through her voice and her words and just how she moves and the things that she creates. And I am so excited for you to meet her. Are you ready to go behind the scenes of Soul Led Entrepreneurship? This is Behind the Boss Lady podcast with your host, Shelby St.clair. You're going to hear from women who share the good, bad, and the ugly of what their journey to success looked like, leaving you with the advice and inspiration you need so that you never give the fuck up on your dreams. I'm Shelby, spiritual healer, embodiment coach, business consultant at the Boss Lady Agency, and the founder of Brunch with Babes. I bring the duality between business, personal branding, emotional intelligence, and transformational healing using NLP, hypnosis, Reiki, chakra, and sound healing as a trauma-informed life coach. I blend the practical, energetic business strategy and systems for women who are looking to step into expansion, leadership, visibility, and soul-aligned authenticity in their work. Your soul led you here for a reason. So join me every Wednesday as we dive deep into what it means to be a boss in your life and business.
Oh, Shelby, you're such a delight. I'm so glad to be here and have this chat with you. We've been talking for a while already, so there's going to be a lot of fun conversation here. So who am I and what I do? I am a transcension mentor, a business strategist, and quantum marketing energetics coach. What that means is that I unite out there multidimensional, quantum, and nonlinear speak and understanding of reality with application to practical business components, business strategies, and how to generate wealth in a third dimension, doing what you love, doing what you meant here to do.
That's amazing. So, okay, because that is so complex and there is so much that comes with that, I first want to ask you how you even got started in this. What led you on this journey of now stepping into this role of helping people in this way with this work that you do?
Well, I was born clairvoyant, so that made for a really odd beginning of my life because I could see timelines and possibilities in people's past lives and all sorts of things that you kind of like don't ask for, but it just downloads in your head anyway. So I had a lot of that going on, and it took a while to process and figure out how to handle that in my own life so that I could actually function. And I'm also neurodivergent, so my brain is wired differently. So that created kind of like a challenge, but at the same time, it was very interesting because due to that challenge, I had to figure out a lot of structural, practical translation of the multidimensional things I'm seeing into something that I can explain in a linear language, which from a very early age got me to be pretty good at being able to do that because I had to do it just to function and communicate with human beings around me. So by the time I was 14 years old, I was already seeing paying clients. I had a full practice when I was 16. Like I had all of this started very early because of my natural ability and because I could see people's direction in life, see where they're getting stuck, see why they're getting stuck, what needs to be cleaned up, what is the way to go, what's the way not to go, and so on. And then over the years, it ended up being that a lot of my clients are naturally people who are kind of self-propelled individuals who had their own businesses. And they would say like, oh, Eugenia, thank you so much for saying this thing. I incorporated it in my marketing and this like totally blew up and it's like awesome. And I sold this thing for, a lot of money. Or thank you so much for telling me to redirect this product to that direction. And then I decided to add the service we were talking about and this magical thing was happening in my business. And I'm like, so that's what I'm doing? Like, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. So I sort of became the business strategist more like backwards by the fact
How
that I just see
funny.
things and know things. And because I've never had a job, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had many, many businesses in my life. I've always been successful. I've always made money. And that translated into confusion when I would see somebody super amazing, totally awesome, delivering some crazy amazing thing to the world, like being a healer or some sort of a mentor for personal transformation. And yet these amazing people who had clients and were doing sessions and everything somehow couldn't figure out how to make any income doing this, when I always did. So that became this fascination of mine. Like, okay, if I could do this and I had to do it really crazy custom way, my own way completely, that means they could do it too, but they were trying to do it in some cookie cutter way. So I had to kind of look at it like, okay, what would be that person's way? And then this person's way. So over time, it just became that I'm very good at seeing patterns, just how my brain is wired. And because I understand the multidimensional and I understand the practical, I started to link the two together and what I see within the person's soul design. So this is how the profit potential piece started to come into existence of like, okay, I understand that you have a lot of talents, but apparently from what my research has been in just watching people, not every talent is meant to generate income. There's some things that we're totally awesome at. And a lot of times those are the things that if you feel confident about, that's what you think your business should put forward. But then it feels like struggle or something doesn't work. And when we would look at the soul design and the profit potential component of it, quite often it would be that like, oh, let's redirect the emphasis over here and over here and over there, the things that the person knew about themselves, but maybe never in their mind told that that would be actually something that could generate their income for them. And yet when we adjust that, whatever they were doing suddenly works so much better. So this is how I kind of ended up with translating this for business. And I work with spiritual coaches. I work with people who are either in a healing modality or in some sort of a holistic health or something that is coach that's meant for transformation of human consciousness one way or another. So these types of people tend to be really good at what they do and not always very good at material matters. And I find that for them, the difficulty is always that when they go to a traditional business coach, they end up with traditional cookie cutter business advice, which then doesn't fit them. And then they start to feel like, well, is there something wrong with me? Like, why is it not working? It seems to be working for others. And the reason for that is because most of the time, the traditional business coaching excludes the multidimensional. So they either don't understand it or they say, well, you can't sell it. You have to like shrink it down to something really dumb version of it. And that's the only thing you can sell. And that's kind of the issue that I've been finding in that niche. So that's how I ended up in that niche, just because that's my world. I mean, I am a transcension mentor, so I do work with multidimensional consciousness and bringing this whole quantum evolution into our existence and so on. But it also helps people who are amazing at what they do and trying to generate income doing it, because I can see that other side and I can help them translate that into human speak. So that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing.
Wow. Okay. What a journey. So, okay, I feel like I have so many questions for you. I feel like we could take this conversation in a million and one directions, but what just kept hitting me was that you've had this gift since you were young, right? And I think and feel like a lot of people have gifts, but they get shut off, or we fear them, or we hide from them, or somebody tells us that we're crazy and it's not real. So, what was your kind of experience with recognizing this gift that you have and then being able to see it as a actual gift and not something to run away from?
Well, you can't really run away from yourself, especially when you're not neurotypical. You kind of have to figure it out or you can't function in life. So I didn't really have an option to just ignoring it. But I remember being probably 5 years old when I would think like, okay, either I'm very wrong and reality doesn't look like what I'm seeing and everybody else are right, or they are all crazy and I'm right, which I'm like, what, the only person on a planet that's right and they all wrong. So I kind of had to come out of this black and white thinking into, okay, they get to see what they see, I get to see what I see, and we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. And then over time I figure out some benefits. I remember being 3.5, and I was talking with my father, trying to explain to him something about one of my non-physical friends who was standing next to me, and we were having conversation. He's from the sixth dimension and he's been with me for a long time, and we've been talking, and I've been trying to explain to my father what we were conversing about in my 3.5-year-old conversational style. That was pretty difficult, but my consciousness was mature, so that also felt really weird, being trapped in this teeny little body that can't articulate. So I was trying to explain about my friend standing with me in a doorway, and my father was looking at me and trying to get what I was saying, and it took a while for me to get that he sees me, he sees the doorway, but he does not see what's next to me, this person that to me is as real as the doorway. So in my 3.5-year-old mind, that translated into, okay, things they can see are the things I can bump into. So if I cannot bump into it, that means they actually don't know it exists. So that created a separation that allowed me to stay, I would say, safe in reality, because I would know what not to blurt out. That to me was totally normal, but I knew that they would not see it. And I actually kind of kept it to myself till about 13, and then it started to come out more just in conversation, and that's how suddenly I had all these clients, because everybody was like, oh my god, I want this.
What
So
is this
yeah,
thing?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, and then as you did that, what were you helping people with in the beginning when you first started getting clients and people were wanting this help? What was that first business like for you?
Usually it was either love advice, which I'm actually not that great at, but people kept coming to me looking for, does he like me? Does she like me? How do I, all this stuff. And then of course I would take out of that into like, okay, it's not about this. You're here for this. So I ended up kind of like going into the life purpose direction, even though they came to me usually for relationships. And then as I kept doing more of that, I started to get older and older generations. So it started with like, teenagers or 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds. And then it was, 30 something year olds. And then it was 50 something year olds, because it's like what I was delivering was for mature people. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody at 20 couldn't be mature, but it also was attracting naturally people who were older. So that's how it slowly kind of transitioned into what is your soul contract in this lifetime, which is the soul design, like how you're made. What are the strengths and expertise that you brought in from other lifetimes? What are the issues in this lifetime that you think are this specific thing? And then I would look at it and kind of bring it out into, okay, this is like for past 22 lifetimes you've been dealing with this specific issue, and this is why, and this is what the lesson is. And then the person, it like clicks in, and we would do some energy work on it and release it, and then like this whole issue just goes away, and they're like, okay, this is magic, like how does that
What the
happen?
heck just happened?
Exactly. And sometimes they would even come to me and say like, okay, I don't know if I believe in past lives. And I'm like, you don't have to believe it. I'm just going to tell you the story. And suddenly they like crying as I'm telling them their past life story, because obviously it's their story. So they're
Touching, yeah.
relating. So their field is, responding. They like feeling all this thing. And they're like, I don't even know why. I don't even know if I believe in the past life, but oh my God, this is like, and that actually cleans it out. And then suddenly it's better. So it's sort of, like, I would never think of myself as new agey person, but I sort of ended up in this world of transformation and consciousness and everything backwards, like by people who didn't even necessarily were looking for energy work. Later on, it became more of the energy healing and working with the chakra system and all sorts of things. But at the beginning, I think the entry point was relationships, which kind of funny. One thing I don't do, like I can like life design, like where are you going and your soul contract and, life cycles and business and how you can make money and everything. And relationship is like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's about that. Not my thing.
Not interested, not here to do that for you.
Yep.
Go find somebody else. Okay, I love this because we've been talking a lot. We've been talking about a lot of different things, just from the conversation we had for your podcast, the side off conversations, and just really seeing how deeply connected the mind, body, and soul is to business. Right. And so it's funny that landed in this place at the beginning of love, but then it's taken you deeper because this was the real purpose of you coming out and stepping out and doing this deeper work that not many people are doing. And not many people are doing it in your way, right? I feel like the work that you do is so deep and so expansive of being able to look at a person and kind of see everything unfold before your eyes, being able to like really root into them and their true purpose and their destiny and where they're supposed to be. And so, as you've been talking to people and really doing this work for so long now, what would you say is something that people get really maybe caught up on or that locks them in, blocks them, that you're then having to come in and kind of help them shift and move through so that they can take that next step into really aligning with who they're meant to be to line up with that soul design?
Well, the most common block, if we can call it, would be assuming that you need to feel certain mentally, when
Mm,
actually certainty is more of an energetic alignment. So when somebody is not sure how to be linked to their body properly, or maybe they not necessarily practicing that and they usually rely on their mind, or they just get scared and go into their mind because that's how they've been conditioned to do things. We kind of on society have that, but that I would say is the most common thing, is when people say like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready, I don't know if I'm certain, I think I really need more of something, like more education, more practice, more like I need to make sure my marketing is perfect before I can step out into this, or I know I'm meant to deliver this gift, but like let me do this other 3 things before I get there. All these things, they're not really about the I'm not ready. It's more like looking for this inner certainty as if it's going to be mental. It's the same thing like when I was doing more of the healing work, when people were saying like, well, I want to talk to the universe, I want to speak with my energy guides, and then they were like assuming the guide will speak to them in English in their head in linear language clearly. So it's like that's not how it works. It's not in the brain from that mental translation at all. So that means
yes.
that to be able to step into your purpose, and especially if you want to serve through it and actually generate income and wealth for yourself and for others by delivering your gift, that means you have to learn how to be masterful within yourself. So it's kind of funny that, I'm a business coach that teaches self-mastery, but you actually have to be masterful in yourself to have power of your word, to have the follow through on your word, to know how you're meant to make decisions, to be connected to your body enough to know how your body responds, to know where to speak from in order for that power to kick in. That's one of the usually revelations for people when we start working together, and they're like, oh no, I can't do video, like, oh, I just always mess it up and
Uh,
whatever. And then we kind of look at like, okay, where is your assemblage point? And they were speaking from their head and then trying to move that energy through their throat and out. And it's like, yeah, of course that doesn't work because your assemblage point is actually in your hips. And she's like, my hips? I'm not supposed to even speak from my heart. It's my hips. It's like, yep. So let's practice that. Let's get you there. Great. We do some energy work to get her there and then go record the video. And it's like magic. And somebody actually signs up and she's like, I can't believe that. Like, what? I just was talking, but I
yeah.
was confident and I was certain. So that's the certainty that comes from somewhere else, not your head. So that I would say is the main issue, is we're all looking for some sort of a certainty, but I think we're conditioned to think that certainty is mental, as in I
Mm,
know everything, it's predictable, I understand it all. And I mean, sometimes that happens, but that's not the real certainty. The real certainty is the part that is actually unique pathway for each individual. So kind of like mental is the habitual go-to for everybody. But
yeah.
then when we start to look at other ways of being certain, for some people is actually to be in a free flow. For other people is to have bullet points of something so that they stay on course. For other people is to have a lot of space and then suddenly they just channel things. For other people, they need to be actually prepared and laid out the structure. So the same thing in the body. Certainty can be from, let's say, the back of one's neck. So if they bring energy there properly, then they can deliver something. And that doesn't even need to be speaking. It could be in writing or a sales conversation correctly. For some
Mhm.
people, it's I call it the tail. So it's kind of like the third leg, like if you can imagine a lizard tail. So not the butt, but like going further down that pathway. That's a remnant. Some star seeds have that from some lifetimes when they were non-human bodies, when they had a tail. And for some people, assemblage point is there and they don't even know that exists, because that's like, we don't have that appendage in a human form. So when we kind of get past the, oh, I have to know this, I have to be prepared, I have to be ready, into, okay, if this is what I feel in my heart of hearts, then I am ready to some degree, like I'm meant to do this. Now let's figure out how to do this in a way that's mine. And that's where the soul design comes in.
Ah, yes. And that is so, I love that that is what you shared and brought up, because it truly is, right? The uncertainty connects to that belief system, and that belief that you have to either know more, do more, be more just to have more. When in reality, it's like that belief is so far detached from your reality of who you really are and how you're meant to show up and how you're meant to speak and share. And when you do all of that interconnecting, it's crazy how somebody can go from being fearful of showing up on social media or on video, and you do this inner work and you release that pressure from the logical mind of it all having to come from there, and really allowing them, giving them permission, right? I think some people need that permission to like step into themselves, to step into their body, to be their true authentic self, because there is this belief that they have to be who everybody wants them to be, or who they have been molded and shaped to be throughout their entire life. And when you strip that layer away, and give them that permission to step into themselves, because we all know that they're ready, right? They don't come looking for this type of work unless
Exactly.
they're actually ready. So just giving them the permission to do it and be it. And then you see them and they're like showing up on video and their energy is so different. They're radiating at such a different level. And the magnitude of their energy spreading is so massive and big and wide that it's just a matter of time before all of a sudden somebody's reaching out like, "Oh, I've been watching you for a while, but something is so different and I have to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to know more." And it truly is about this, just like the work that I do, right? That soul alignment, just getting into alignment with who you are. And then you're able to take them even deeper into the zone of just connecting their true pathway of how they're going to make money in this lifetime in a way that feeds them and feels so good to them, without the cookie cutter process, which I would love to
Exactly.
talk about for a second, because that is something that I too do not believe in. I think that the cookie cutter process is so stale and dry, and it's just not helpful. I cannot stand the ads that you come across that are like, "Oh, follow the strategy and you'll make 30K in 30 days." And then everybody's feeding to it. And then they take on this belief that they just aren't worthy and they can't do it. And okay, maybe this being in business or doing something for themselves isn't actually meant to be, when that desire landed on their heart and in their mind and in their system for a divine reason. But because they're trying to do something in one way that worked for one person, they're now in a new state of belief that they can't do it. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that we can riff on this for a quick minute of just
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
how
Because
this impacts
mm-hmm.
spiritual leaders and
Oh my
business owners.
goodness. So many people get traumatized by this idea that there's this way, and if they just learn this way, and then they hire somebody or they take a class and they invest all this money in somebody else's way. And then they wonder why that doesn't work. So, usually, as you said very correctly, it goes into, well, there's something wrong with me. I must not be meant for it, and so on. One thing I say is, first of all, a lot of times people don't know what being authentic means. So they kind of think like, well, that means I just show up with everything. Well, I can't do that because that's like, sometimes I feel bad or whatever. Like I can just show up with that. And that's true in a sense, but you kind of have to look at like there's a higher self part of you, there's an ego part of you, and there's a lower self part of you. So being authentic doesn't mean that you bring the lower self part and blast that all over internet. That's not authentic. That's just irresponsible. But being able to step into your higher self version, and that is what shows up. Now that's authentic, but for a lot of people, that's also takes some deconditioning and cleaning up of the karmic patterns to do that clearly. And speaking to the cookie cutter thing, what I found is that when the business strategy and the marketing is aligned to one's unique soul design, like how they are meant to do it. Of course, there's some proven strategies and they're all great. But within that, we kind of pick like, okay, this one, this one, this one, and those don't even try. Like that would be torture for you. It would not be your thing. And a lot of times that's what happens is that people kind of step into with this idea, well, I'm at this point of my business, so I'm supposed to scale. So I'm supposed to like go higher end. And that's true in a lot of ways, but not necessarily for everybody. Depending on your soul design, you might actually be asked to do it a little bit differently. Some people say, oh, that means I'm supposed to have like a large group. Well, if your energetics are not designed for a large group, what's going to happen there? You're going to hire a team of 20 people just to make sure that you can handle it. And then in the end, not make any money, even if you had 50 clients. So that's kind of not the way, because that's a way to burn out instead. For somebody like that, maybe actually going really individual, but deeper would be the solution. So we always look as to how you design and what is the ideal situation. This is where the wealth energetics comes in, because there is a linear way of doing things, kind of masculine or electric, when it's a step-by-step process. And of course, it's needed to some extent in this reality, just because third dimension is linear. But at the same time, if you're bringing fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, 10th dimensional energies in here, that's all quantum, that's all non-linear. So as soon as that starts to come in, I think this is where a lot of people have a disconnect. Like over here, I'm this beautiful spiritual person who follows my purpose and I'm in alignment and I, channel. And over here, I do this linear strategy for business and I'm suffering doing it. But over there, I'm back to being awesome multidimensional leader. So what I do is weave those two together so that in a material plane, you still get to do this multidimensional thing. And the way to do that is, one is adjust, of course, one's business strategy to match them. But another one is to utilize nonlinear quantum marketing. So that would be energetics of who you on a soul level already contracted to help. Who are the specific humans who require the vibration of your gift? How do you generate a energy vortex with whatever you're delivering, anchor that in the body, create a proper broadcast to compel these specific people to come to you, so you don't have to go chase clients, but that they are attracted to the type of a resonance you're putting in, and then weaving that into marketing. So that looks like, well, nonlinear creation. It's essentially connecting, instead of like 1, 2, 3, 4, you kind of go 1, 22, 18, 88, 100. And it's just like, wow. So a lot of times when we utilize this other side in marketing, results happen much faster. Like I've had many clients that would come in and they were doing like sessions, let's say $100 sessions, $200 sessions, totally awesome, doing like 90% of what they were doing, they were not getting paid for. They were getting paid for like technician part of the 10%. So we incorporated the 90%, we shifted the emphasis, we brought in the emphasis energetically into that. So then there's a big energy vortex. She can hold her gift. She can finally claim it, own it, and then weave it into marketing non-linearly. And then suddenly, oh, $7,000 client, oh, $10,000 client. And it's like, okay, how did she go there? Not from step by step by step, like, oh, I have to do 20 things before I can ever have a $7,000 program. But no, you can actually step there in integrity. So this is not about just adding $0 to $500 offer and saying, now it's 5,000. Like, no, it's not that. You have to be in integrity. You have to actually create a program that's worth it. But most of it is, can you claim and stand in the power of your gift? And if you can, you create the vortex. And if you create the vortex, let's find the words in linear language to translate all this multi-D stuff into human speak in a way that compels people that are specific people to respond. So utilizing that helps tremendously to create those leaps, those quantum leaps, that you don't have to wait forever and ever to be ready. You can internally decide you're ready, decide you're going to find certainty in alignment, and then hop into it.
Yeah. Just do it. Be like
Mhm.
Nike and just do it. No, I was kidding.
Well, the
No,
just
but
do
really,
it part, that's actually kind of funny too, because a lot of times people come in with, well, okay, I'm ready, I just want to do it, but they in a linear way. So they
mhm.
just want to do it in that way. And most people are actually not designed to do that ever.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
design to either be in response to the universe or in response to some inspiration we're getting or in response to our body. But there's always something that we're responding to
Mhm.
energetically. It's never about like my
Yes.
ego decided to go that way, so I'm just going to push my way. So ready to go and do it actually in my world translates into I'm ready to claim it, to stand
Mhm.
into it, to broadcast it, and then to serve through it.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And what a beautiful way for you to just go and explain that and really just laying it out there how it doesn't have to be step by step by step, because I think that that is not, I think, I know that that is what so many business owners step into the role of saying, okay, I want to create a six-figure business
Oh,
when they first launch their business. And they're like, okay, so to do that, I have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and not realizing or recognizing that maybe B, C, F, G don't actually feel good to them at all.
or
But
they
then
might not
they're
be in that order. There
yeah,
might be some
and
other
that they're
order.
just saying like, okay, well, I then that resistance is created, right? And then they take a step back and it starts to create this inner battle of, okay, well, I think I have to do these things, but I don't really want to. And then they take and they pull back because now there's that resistance because their energy is like, no, we don't want to do that. That's not, and like you said, yeah, maybe it's just not the time for it right now. Maybe that's not what they're supposed to be doing next, but there's that resistance. And I think that a lot of people take that resistance as in a answer and they respond to it and they react to it as, okay, this isn't for me, or that's not for me, or I'm not supposed to do that, rather than kind of realizing and recognizing that that feeling and that resistance is just a call for awareness, a call for shift, a call for change. Okay, this is a dynamic area and a space that we can actually do something differently here. And we don't have to do it in that way because it doesn't feel good to me, or it doesn't just feel good to me right now. And so having that expansive mind and that awareness to say, okay, I can build a six-figure, seven-figure, eight-figure business by doing it in a way that feels good to me, which is incredible. And I love that you're serving people in this way because it's truly what's needed. It's what's needed in this world to really allow the human form to say, okay, I can do, be, and have whatever the heck I want because I have claimed it and I am certain that I deserve it. And I know that this is my birthright because this very thing landed within me for a reason. And I am here to divinely create it. And now you're giving them the way and the guidance and the help to truly help them get there without all of that why and how and what. You're taking that away and it's just like, okay, this is it. You're going to do it this way because this is what's going to work for you. And we're going to
Right.
remove that because that
Mhm.
doesn't feel good for you.
Right. And at the beginning of the business, you always do need to do some things that are just structural. So, kind of like if somebody doesn't have any business, you can't expect that you're going to have no structures and somehow just meditate and clients come. Like, no, you have to
Yes.
set things up, which means you also need to learn which are your ways. So,
Mhm.
to do that, you probably do need to try this, try that. But if you understand your soul design and you understand the profit potential within it, now
Mhm.
you know kind of where you're guiding the whole thing. Like you will maybe find the way that fits you better, but at least you know where to focus and what to put emphasis on. And I always say that when we get negative feedback, like, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. Before you start decoding what that means, ask yourself, did you get yourself into the thing that created negative feedback correctly?
Mm.
Or were you just following your mind or your ego or your insecurity? Because half of the time, like let's say somebody says like, oh, I did this launch and it didn't work and nobody signed up. Oh, I'm bad. And it's like, okay, backpedal here into the origin point. Why did you do the launch? Oh, well, because, this is the time before, I don't know, Christmas, and this is like where you're supposed to do the lunch. Did you want to? Did you have energy for it? Was this aligned? Well, I don't know. This is just what I had to do. Okay, then. So your negative feedback has nothing to do with you're not good enough or the lunch didn't work. You probably can do the same lunch when you are in a life energy and it will work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
just looking how we enter into life. Most of the time, when people are not aware how they enter into life, they end up with random results as well. But when you are conscious about how you entering each scenario, you cannot lose. You will always gain something, either knowledge and expertise, or actually whatever happened to be the thing you wanted, or the thing way better than what you wanted. I always say it's 100% possible 100% of the time. In the quantum field, every possibility exists. So it's up to us. What can we claim? What kind of energy vortex we can create? How big is our wealth container? As in what we can actually hold and what do we think
Mm-hmm.
we're not worthy of? So expanding that thing to be able to bring in wealth. And then from that place, ideally, if you also understand your profit potential direction, now you're not putting your emphasis everywhere, but only at the right places. Most of the time, like when people come to me, they think that, okay, we're going to build this bigger thing. And we end up building smaller thing. We end up taking things out and simplifying. So instead of 5 programs, she ends up with 1 or maybe 1.5, and that's it. So it's
Yeah.
actually creating more space. It's
Yeah.
creating more alignment and more simplicity because it's aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Generating 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, the higher you go, the more space you're going to need because of responsibility of the energy vortex you're holding and the size of what you're bringing through, the voltage of it. So that's not about, oh, let me do more. Like doing
Yeah.
more might work at the beginning of the business just because the hustle is kind of part of like how we figure stuff out. But once you're getting further on, then you can't go that way. More hustle
Yes.
doesn't work. That's a way to
Yes.
burn out. So this is where we actually have to shift into something that is more harmonious, more congruent with oneself, more aligned, and more self-loving.
Mm.
That kindness and self-respect, like that's one of my big values, integrity and self-respect. I think so many times people do not respect themselves. They respect others so much, and yet they somehow forget to transfer that onto themselves. And without self-respect, you cannot have your wealth container big enough. So
Yeah.
those two things are actually linked.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Because just as we are taking care of everybody else and worrying about everybody else and wanting to respect everyone else in the way that we hold that value, when we aren't giving it to ourselves, we're automatically telling ourselves that we believe that we aren't worthy of everything that we're actually working towards, right? Because we're not even honoring ourselves, the thing that is the most important being in our life, being us. If we don't give ourselves the love and the nurturing and the care and the respect, that's just another level of creating that burnout, right? Because you're
Exactly.
just focused on everything else and you're just saying, okay, well, I'll take care of me when I have time. I'll do it when I have time. Okay, well, today's not a good day, even though my body is craving for it. Maybe I'm just craving to get outside, but I won't even give myself 5 minutes to just go and be outside. So I'm just going to tell myself tomorrow. And then your body gets tighter and you're just like, well, yeah, I don't love myself, but I have to do this. I have to sit here on the computer and get this thing done. So thank you for sharing that because it is something and it's so naturally easy to fall into that pattern of pushing yourself off and pushing yourself to the side and getting into that routine of I just have to go, 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 keep doing because my time is coming and there's going to come a time where I'm not going to have to do so much. But when you are go, 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 and you're putting that into your space and you're telling yourself that you just have to go until there's time, when the time comes, you're already going to be in into the cycle of telling yourself that you just have to keep going. So even if you create something that's bigger, you're going to push yourself to do more. You're going to hit more burnout. The cycle's going to continue. And rather than having somebody like you who can come in and say, we don't have to do all of this, and you can still make this much money and more without doing so much, you're just going to
Exactly.
keep going and keep going. And what I've seen with my clients is that when they're at that point of they just keep going and keep pushing, there comes a time or they are so burnt out because they've been on this cycle for so long of doing the same thing the same way and not loving themselves, not caring for themselves, that there comes a day where they just look and they say, I can't do this anymore. And instead of recreating and repositioning and just revamping what they have that was working in a way that actually works for them and their own energetics, they just give up and they just walk away. And
Yeah,
then
and
at
that's
some
why
point
so
they
many
decide to
times,
start again.
right, so many times people who kind of like scale to, let's say, 4,000 a month, 5,000 a month, and then they get to right that line of, 70 to 100. And that's where they give up, because that's like,
Mhm.
okay, I can't possibly, like, I'm already working so hard. And now suddenly they become disinterested and they just don't care. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And all of that is an energetic rebellion. So usually that does not mean to walk away, just like you're
Mhm.
saying. It means readjustment is needed. And one thing that I always look at is, if we want to make it sustainable, like this is your gift, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like this, I mean, you're just going to keep helping people this way, or some version of that, maybe it will evolve. Okay, if this is what you want, so this is not like a stop for a year and then you're going to go somewhere else, but this is your journey, then let's figure out how to make it sustainable in a way that feeds you. So business is meant to be something that brings wealth to you, not just you giving to the business. And a lot of times people end up feeding their business with their energy, but then there's nothing coming to them. That then it becomes kind of like chasing money. It becomes about like, oh, I will be good enough when I get to, let's say, 50,000, 70,000, 100,000, 120,000. And it's like, good enough has nothing to do with it. You are already eternally amazing. You are a one-time cosmic event. So it's more about like, what can you download through yourself? And now let's figure out how to make that sustainable. For example, somebody who maybe been working 4 or 5 hours every day and with clients, and then adding marketing to that, and then all this messaging and everything, and they exhausted. And then I look at her design and we start looking at like, okay, what is it that you love? It seems like these things would work better for you. And I don't tell my clients like what to do or what to be. We uncover more of what they are together. So we usually would see that, okay, apparently she, let's say, hates messaging. Like she was drained by having to do this whole thing. And it's like, okay, why are you doing it? Well, because somebody told me sales conversations are horrible and I'm supposed to do it all on Messenger. And it's like, okay, are you actually hating sales conversations? Well, I don't know. I never had one. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try. So that's like an example of completely backwards, because sometimes people actually don't want to do sales conversation for a good reason and not designed to do it. And then they should switch to some other way of bringing people in. But in her case, she was completely killing herself with consistent, always on social media. So we took it all completely out. Now she just does few events and some sales conversations. Way easier for her, and she signs clients. We also upgraded her program from 5,000 to 12. So a lot of these things are like, are you actually honoring who you are, and are you getting paid for what you're doing? That's kind of like my pet
Mhm.
peeve. I always look at, what are you actually doing? So I always ask my clients, like, tell me what you do. Oh, well, I do this. Okay, tell me what you really do. Well, I do this. Okay, and how does that? Oh, well, I also do this. Okay, and when this happens, well, then I also do this. And before long, it's like, okay, you're getting paid for, between 10% to 50% of what you're actually doing.
Mhm.
So we either need to take out what you're doing so that it's matching the pricing, or we need to raise the fee to match what is it you're actually doing. And with that, more space is created, because there's always dignity and a feeling of self-satisfaction and feeling of self-honor when we respect ourselves. That naturally
Yes.
grows the wealth container, which means you suddenly feel totally normal getting paid, let's say, 10,000 per client. Like I
Just
literally have a
another
client
day.
who, yeah, she was like, I can't imagine Eugenia to ever have a $10,000 program. So when we were working together, she was trying to build a $6,000 program, which was just way beyond what she could even imagine. Then she attracts this client, they have a sales conversation, and she's talking to her, she's like, well, she also needs this and she also needs that. And Eugenia was saying like, well, that could be a VIP thing, whatever. So in her head, it got to 10,000. So then she tells her it's 10,000. The woman signs up and she's like, okay, what just happened? Like, I just sold this thing for $10,000. I'm going to do everything I'm going to do anyway, which is like, I know now working with you that this is what it's worth, but I didn't do anything. I just talked. And it's like,
Yep.
yeah, but you owned it. You were in the right energy. And we figured out how to translate all this multi-D stuff you do into linear language with the proper energy imprints within your soul design so that it compels the other person to want to come to you. She literally had this, the woman literally told her, oh my God, you're a coach for me. How do I pay you? Like,
And that
she's
is
just like,
the best thing.
that's
It's the
like,
best
what?
feeling.
Yeah, but that happens. Like, it happens to me
Yeah.
all the time, and it happens to a lot of my clients, because when you create the proper vortex with what you meant to do, then you're attracting, or you're speaking to people you meant to speak to, not just some random people you mentally decided are the good market placement, but somebody that you actually meant to. And a lot of times people get confused. They're like, well, I don't know about these people. Like, well, I don't want to talk to these people, but energetically, these are the right people. So then we have to clean up actually some conditioning about why do you not want to talk to them? And usually it's because of some misconceptions they have. Because, like, well, with these people, I can really show up. Like, let's say if she is stepping out of the corporate environment, and now let's say she's being an energy healer, and she has her business, she has her clients, and the clients are non-corporate, and then we look at her, you know, programming within her soul contract, and it's actually to help people who are in the corporate world to lead properly and transform corporate culture. And she's like, well, I don't want to go back to corporate. So then she doesn't want to do that. And
Yeah.
when we start kind of decoding that, it's like, okay, you don't have to go back to corporate. That's the whole point. You have to be holding that energy, but you know corporate because you come out of there. So you kind of like the secret agent, like you can get in and resonate properly. And when we shift that, suddenly she has like $15,000 clients, and it's awesome, and she loves them, and it's great. And she's like, oh, they like me, how I used to be like 5 years ago. This is great. But she never thought that she could do that. She thought that because she's doing healing work, it has to be non-corporate. So
Yeah.
there's so many misconceptions that we actually block our profit potential.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I always talk with clients that come to me and they're asking these questions. They're like, well, I don't know who I'm supposed to help. This is what I know I want to do, but I don't know who and I don't know how. And there really is, we all enter into this world and we have a path and we experience things and we go through things so that we can have that connection and that understanding of something. I call it that zone of genius that you get to tap into because you've been there and you've done it. So just as this woman that was in the corporate world, she knows the corporate world inside and out at this point. So of course it's going to be of service to her and of service to them for her to be able to get in there and help them because she already has that in and that understanding and that zone of genius in that space. And now it's just shifting and becoming who you're meant to be to help those type of people. So I love that. And I think that that is the perfect place for you to share with everybody that's listening how they can get to know more about you and your work and where they could find you.
Absolutely. I have a program that's recorded. It's a webinar that you can get more understanding through about what I'm talking about here with the energetics, with the expertise as to who is it for, how to actually transition these quantum leaps we were talking about. Like, how do you get from like where you are to this next level thing? So it's you can dial in soulstrategywebinar.com. That will get you right there. And it's called How Coaches Get to Sustainable 10K Months from Doing Their Soul Work. So this is about finding high ticket clients who are ready to pay you more than $5,000 in an integrous way, like a model of conscious coaching or healing that does not require endless course launches or large email lists, like all the things, the cookie cutter stuff. It does not need anything of that. This is going to show you how you can kind of like envision attracting higher ticket clients by speaking from that soul expertise place in the right energetics, even if you don't consider yourself a high ticket coach yet, but it will show you what that means and how to become one. If this is what you're called to do, to really go really deep with your clients and serve at the highest level. So this is where I'm going to explain why a lot of these rigid masculine cookie cutter strategies don't work or didn't work for you before if you tried them. And there's a different system that's needed that's based on your unique way in order for you to understand how to do it. And I'll give a lot of examples in there. So soulstrategywebinar.com.
Awesome.
Yep.
And are you on any social media or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that?
I'm pretty much on all social media, but the easiest way to find me is either on LinkedIn, so just Eugenia Oganova, or in Facebook. I have a group, a high ticket client energetics for spiritual coaches, so you can definitely join that. At Eugenia Oganova or Eugenia Oganova Coach, so you can find me anywhere on the Facebook. And I have a website that has enormous amount of free information that you can like look through on the consciousness side, and it explains a lot of the things I do as well. It's just people always get to my website and they're like, oh my God, this stuff exists. Like there's like a library of stuff. Yes, it does. It's called transcensiongate.com. So it will show you all sorts of things I do, including like I teach quantum evolution and some other stuff like that's kind of non-business pieces, but it's all in there. So it will give you a lot of the overview of what I do. And of course, I would love to have you sign up for my YouTube channel as well, because that way you get to see all the videos I post all the time explaining all that stuff. So that's Eugenia Oganova Wealth Energetics.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that, all the places that you can be found, all the goodness that you have to share with everybody that's listening. All of the links will be down in the show notes. This was so incredible to talk to you and just to learn more and to understand exactly what you do and how you're doing it and how you're shifting the world of business into bringing the energetics into this wealth mapping and strategy and just deep diving into the soul design, into business and everything that women and men are creating. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you so much, Shelby, for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode on Behind the Boss Lady podcast. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at The Boss Lady Agency and subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. Leave a review or share with me what your biggest takeaway was. I can't wait to connect with you more, and I'll see you next week.